My name is Maurice Oniang'o. I am a multimedia investigative journalist. I have a keen interest on stories to do with governance, corruption, social justice, as well as conservation and natural history. Kenya loses billions and billions of shillings each year due to stalled projects. So I was keen and interested to look into this issue. And then I stumbled upon this project by the United Nations Office for Projects Services. So I was interested and I started looking into financials. And when I started looking into UNOPS, I found it had a bigger scandal at the United Nations. They had a tribunal, and there was even a ruling that had been done, but nothing had been talked about Kenya. And Kenya plays an important role.
Today we are here as a first step to launch one of our strategic partners projects. Habitat Heights is the first of many housing projects that the United Nations Office of Project Services and their partners plan to undertake in our country.
Habitat Heights was one of the flagship projects that was launched by UNOPS, and there was an agreement between Kenya, the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, in New York. This was signed in 2018 in September at the UN General Assembly. And this agreement was for UNOPS to come in with partners, private developers, to build affordable housing in Kenya. And the promise at that time was 100,000 houses. In 2019, they came in now on the ground to launch the first project, which now was Habitat Heights. And Habitat Heights was a project promising 8,888 affordable houses.
Our destination, ladies and gentlemen, is to tackle the housing challenge, and this was inspired by the reality of our nation, Kenya, today. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what pressed me to find solutions that will enhance access to decent and affordable housing for our people.
Kenya faces a housing shortfall of about 200,000 houses each year. And in Nairobi alone, 60% live in informal settlements. And in these informal settlements, there's lack of clean water, lack of good sanitation, and there's always these constant fires that happen each and every time. So Kenya faces a huge need for this affordable housing, and this was taken advantage of because at the time Kenya had launched the Affordable Housing Initiative. So UNOPS was coming in as a partner because the then president had promised to build about 100,000 homes, and UNOPS coming in and saying that now we're going to build for you 100,000 homes. We're going to bring in private developers who are going to and look for the funds. So that's how it was used.
This project alone will inject an estimated $5 billion into the Kenyan economy, further evidence and affirmation that Kenya is a worthwhile, secure, and facilitative destination for foreign direct investment.
According to the financial statements, in 2019 and 2020, 1 year they disbursed 5.4 million US dollars. The other year they disbursed $5.8 million, which comes to around 11.2 million US dollars that had been disbursed for the Kenyan social housing project. What I found when I went there was the same building that had been during the launch, which was this one structure. Nothing has been happening at the site for years. And for me, it was interesting because on the website, UNOPS had claimed that the first homes had been ready in Kenya on their website when they were launching that. And this was just one structure that had two show houses that were not meant for habitation. These were just show houses to show prospective buyers there. This is how these houses are going to look like. So it was a model. Inside that one structure, no houses had been built. The agreement had been signed between the government of Kenya and then UNOPS, and then they brought in a developer called SHS Holdings. And SHS Holding, now when I started digging deeper, I found it had other issues. There was a UN tribunal that found out the main director of SHS Holdings had some dealings with the deputy director for UNOPS, and some of these issues that were raised was the fact that he had lent the deputy director of UNOPS money, he had bought a Mercedes-Benz. In return, the deputy director now gave him contracts and also money from UNOPS to pursue different projects. These were the people who were involved in the project, and David Kendrick had different companies that were now involved in the Kenyan projects. There were two different companies. So there was the mother company that was SHS Holding, which was the main contractor. We had one called Bao Panel, and then there was another one called Bao Lifestyle. All these companies were companies that were to offer services for this Habitat Heights project in Kenya. And one of them filed for dissolving when the UN was investigating this S3I initiative issue, but it was denied. Did the Kenyan government vet these companies that were being brought in to pursue this project, because the findings from the UN tribunal found out that this SHS Holding had no experience of undertaking such a kind of a project, and they were being given a project to build 100,000 affordable houses, but they had no prior experience for that. So it brings questions about who vetted them. You know, something that involves the president to come and launch it. It means a lot of vetting has to be done, due diligence, because now it becomes an embarrassment to the presidency. The only form of accountability that has happened is after the tribunal, the then deputy director was told to pay 58.8 million US dollars, which was extended to the companies of David Kendrick, and is also facing criminal charges in the United States. The biggest lesson from this investigation for me was the need for accountability and transparency, especially when you're handling a project that is publicly funded or donor funded. Transparency is very key. Accountability is very key. Vetting processes, due diligence, very important when dealing with such projects, because you bring in an individual or a company that has no capacity. Of course, you expect them to deliver, but if they have no capacity, the chances of them delivering the project is almost none or zero. So due diligence is very key, and accountability and being open about all the processes is very important.